Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 5. So throughout this season, The Flash, even though we are only 13 episodes in, just over halfway through this season, we've had quite a decent amount of distractions is probably the best word to use, or maybe disruptions is even better. Anyway, there have been a decent amount of either of those things this season compared to previous seasons. Really, when I think about it, I can't really remember The Flash having issues like this in previous seasons to this level or degree. Unless, of course, you include the Andrew Kreisberg situation from last season, I guess. But that was more of a DC TV or Arrowverse-wide problem, not specifically to The Flash. Because he was involved with mainly The Flash and Supergirl, but also Arrow as well. From memory, I don't think he was really involved with Legends of Tomorrow, but I might be wrong. But to avoid being too vague, because I know people get triggered when I'm pretty vague at the beginning of videos, the issues and problems that the Flash has faced this season, and as we will go over in this video, could continue to face this season going into next season, that being Season 6, which was confirmed to be happening around a week ago. And that problem is that of main cast member absences, as well as some leaving the show completely. Now, cast members leaving a show isn't a spooktacular and not very common thing. It happens. I mean, last season we saw Quentin Lance from Arrow leave after being there since the beginning, and fans are still getting over that, and the same can be said for Supergirl viewers with the character of Winn, and various characters on Legends of Tomorrow. Spoiler alert for some of that stuff, but, you know, it's in the past. But if the rumors are true, and some evidence is stacking up to support some of these rumors, then The Flash could be very different come next season, and not different in a good way. So the obvious absence from the show we should all know of by now. If you haven't noticed this yet, then I would be extremely shocked and also partially concerned that you wouldn't have noticed this yet. But Joe West has been off the show since I think around episode 4. I think that might have been the last episode he was in. So he has been gone for a while, and early on it was okay, Cecile and Joe just had a kid. I can understand him not showing up, he's just been chilling out. But then it kept going and going to the point where we all thought that Joe, had taken a trip to apartment 4 or something and never came out. We were all confused as to what the hell was happening, but we eventually got the news that Jesse L. Martin, the actor who plays Joe West, had suffered a back injury in the off-season, which required some surgery eventually, which also, explained the actor's absence at Comic-Con this year, which caught people off guard as well. Of course, we know now that Jesse is back on set as Joe West and will be returning on our screens in episode 15. So that's the episode that follows this week's episode of The Flash. So get excited for the big man, aka Joe's return, for now. But one character that just seems will be leaving come the end of this season is that of Cisco Ramon, of course played by Carlos Valdez. I know for a fact that the CW and Warner Brothers reps are just blocking questions about the fate of this character on the show, which usually says a lot, seeing that they are saying nothing. I'm sure most of you would have noticed that there have been episodes this season where Cisco just isn't even there, and they just give a one sentence excuse, oh, he's taking time off, or he's in the North Pole working on the cure, just stuff like that to just quickly explain why he's not in the episode. This season, we of course have the Metahuman Cure storyline, which is of course connected to taking down Cicada, but we know Cisco enjoys not having his powers, just being normal. And he wants to have a wife, have some kids, just have a family. So it seems that is where he is heading to cure his, powers and dark matter stuff, lose his powers and move on and have a regular life. With the no-shows of Cisco on the show of recent, most recently in last week's episode, that being episode 13, it does seem that the show is getting us viewers used to Cisco not being around. That's what it feels like, at least. Just so when it does get to the point where he does leave the show, it isn't a shock when he isn't there and we don't have his dialogue and references and just all-round presence there on the show. Even Canada Graphs, a regular feature on the channel as he is a photographer and regular set visitor on the set of The Flash in Vancouver, was able to actually ask Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco, whether he was leaving the show or not. And he said that it's up to the writers in regards to that, which was a weird response. You think he would just say, yeah, I'm staying, don't worry, if you were actually staying on the show and not leaving, not giving a sort of half answer in regards to that. They did even name drop Ryan Choi in episode 1 of this season as the person who creates the Flash ring and new suit, so they could have been setting up Cisco's replacement as early as back then. But there has been another piece of information that has come out over the past a week or so roughly, which has people even more concerned and worried about The Flash next season, which is that there is another cast member possibly leaving the show outside of Carlos Valdez who plays Cisco. Now, there isn't a specific name attached to this, but it is pretty easy to say that it won't be, Grant Gustin who plays Barry Allen or Candice Patton who plays Iris West. I say that because I'm sure the writers' room would want to avoid being called racists for the rest of the show's life. So yeah, I think they'd avoid that. But who is this next cast member that could possibly be leaving? Well, one of the people that broke this scoop, if you want to call it, early on did say that Danielle Panabaker, who of course plays Kaylin, has, been weighing up leaving apparently. But they weren't saying that this was what was connected to the scoop of someone leaving, like her, potential, departure from the show. Now, Danielle is directing episode 18 for this season, which I think starts directing like now or soon, like in the next couple of days. And she constantly promotes the show on Twitter and social media. She is really the only person on the show who does this in the main cast, apart from maybe Hartley Sawyer, who plays Ralph, who does promote the show fairly regularly and like live tweets the show as well. So it would be a massive shock if she was the other person leaving. I mean, go look at the social media accounts for the other actors, like the main actors on the show. Like Grant Gustin promotes the show like every now and then, maybe every couple of weeks, but not every week. Candice Patton hasn't promoted the show for months, since like maybe the first couple of episodes of this season. Maybe episode like 5 or 6 was the last time she promoted it. Tom Cavanaugh hasn't really promoted the show either, apart from maybe like episode 8, which was the episode he directed. So it would be weird if one of the few people on the show that actually promotes the show regularly was to leave or had been weighing up leaving for a while. Not saying it won't happen, it still easily could. Like Danielle could go, by the way, I'm leaving, the next couple of days. It just seems very odd and unlikely. So who do I think is this other person that's leaving then, or rumored to be leaving? Well, Jessica Parker Kennedy, who plays Nora, will most likely leave, but from what was said in regards to this departure, it sounded like it was a character that had been on the show for multiple seasons that will be leaving, so it's like a big departure. So I think I have like 2 proper options as to who could be leaving. The first of these is an actor I have already mentioned in this video, and that's Jesse L. Martin, who plays Joe. As I said, he had that back injury, which even when operated on, still gives you problems and restricts what you can and cannot do. Even the slightest wrong move can reignite problems there, so acting where you are standing up and turning and just moving constantly for hours, on end sometimes, it just seems like a given that he would, bring about that injury again eventually. So personally, this is probably my top pick. I could see them bringing him back from episode 15 until the end of this season, limiting what he's doing and just working a storyline around him maybe, retiring from the Central City Police Department and moving to maybe a smaller town with Cecile to raise their daughter Jenna. Of course, this would most likely lead to Danielle Nicolette, who plays Cecile in the show, leaving the show as well. Unless they made it that they moved to a town like just outside Central City, or maybe like half an hour outside Central City, and she still comes there for work or something and could still appear on the show. But for a character like Cecile, who is just like a side character for the most part, who isn't that big of an influence on the show, it would seem like too much of an effort to work all of that out. And the other option, which some people have been, bringing up, and that does sort of have some legs to stand on, is that of Tom Cavanaugh leaving the show, who of course plays the various versions of Harrison Wells, and of course Eobard Thawne as well this season. Now, the reason that some are thinking that he could leave the show is just due to the fact that he has done really, he's just done much more than what was expected of him originally, I'm pretty sure. He has played many versions of Harrison Wells, and people do think the shtick is possibly getting a bit old now. For me personally, I'm not really in that thinking. I like seeing which new version of Wells we get every season and stuff like that, and how it's different from the last or the previous, iterations. But I do respect people who have that opinion, on Wells, because I can see why you would have that. The fact that he is playing that Eobard Thawne role this season and possibly wrapping up that version's arc is a point of evidence some have brought up as well. For me, it wouldn't surprise me if he were to leave as well, just due to the amount that he has already done on the show, but I wouldn't want him to leave either. As I have said, any version of Harrison Wells is an important part of the show, and you can feel when they aren't there. So it would be a big, big loss to the show if he were to go, even though they are both big parts on the show. I do think no Wells on the show would be felt more than maybe like no Joe on the show. And as I've mentioned previously in other videos around like, mainly Cisco possibly leaving, I think losing any one of that original Team Flash from back in season 1, like that OG group of Wells, Cisco, and Kaylin, would be a massive impact on the show. So imagine losing Cisco, which I think is pretty much confirmed now, or at least the show is giving off that vibe. Is probably the best word to use, but they're giving off that vibe that Cisco could be leaving. Imagine if you lost Cisco and Wells completely from the show in one foul swoop. It'd be a massive shock to the show, and I don't know how the show would be able to replace them and make people happy. So I think just for safety, it'd be weird if Tom Cavanaugh were to leave the show. I don't know how the show would recover that much loss of character in one quick go. So yeah, I think out of these two, I think Joe leaving makes more sense, but it would also be more beneficial to the show just because I don't think you want to lose two of that core group, you know, in one go. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. It wasn't the most, you know, uplifting video. You know, we're talking about some negative stuff, but obviously, you know, if you enjoyed in some way, or you just enjoy what we talked about, or it was just enlightening, if you want to call it, be sure to drop a like on the video to show support. You know, let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on this. Interested to see what you guys have to say. You know, apart from Cisco, which other character do you think could possibly be leaving the show? Do you think it's Joe? Do you think it's Wells? Do you think it's Caitlin? Do you think it's Ralph or something like that? Let me know your various opinions down in the comments. I'm excited, not excited, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say, because, you know, it's a discussion. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys have to say. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.